All right, good morning, guys. Today we are going to finish up Greece. I'm going to assign you all some questions that are going to pertain to all of the materials, all the slides. So, excuse me. So to find all the slides in one place, I will show you guys where that is. And then we'll finish this lesson. Okay, so you all are going to need to access the full file to be able to complete the questions. So you will go to the top of your page where you see general, post, files, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. You go to files, class materials, and the Classical Greece PowerPoint will be up there. It'll be every slide. And that's where you'll be able to pull the information for those questions that I assign you at the end of today. But until then, I usually have this open, my bad. All right, we were right around here, I think, yesterday. Okay, so we left off talking about the fabled lost city of Atlantis. The odds are it is not a real city, but just because Plato mentioned it in his dialogues, a lot of people have thought it must be true. He must have been saying the truth. And so they've been searching for the lost city of Atlantis ever since. Nobody's found it yet. So, so we finished talking about the three philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates. They came in order. Socrates first, Plato second, Aristotle third, and then Aristotle had a pupil. He taught noble children, and one of his pupils, one of his students, was Alexander of Macedonia, the son of Philip of Macedonia, who was a king of Macedonia, which was a country located outside of Greece, actually. The Macedonians are not Greeks, but they're very similar. They share a lot of similarities. Macedonia eventually conquered Greece. When Alexander's father was king, he conquered Greece, united the Greeks into one empire. And then he died, and Alexander took over. And by 323, Alexander had conquered Greece, Persia, all of Southwest Asia, Egypt, the Indus River Valley, and India, which would be modern-day Pakistan, all by the age of 32 years old. So at 32 years old, he had created the world's largest empire ever. He did this mainly by conquering the world's largest empire ever, essentially. So as you can see, the Kingdom of Macedonia is up here, a little bit north of what we traditionally look at as ancient Greece. Ancient Greece would have been Thebes down here, with Sparta and Athens would have all been on this peninsula, whereas Macedonians were kind of in, modern day, Hungary, that kind of area. So anyways, they unite this side. Alexander sails across the Hellespont, it's called, this little area. He lands at what used to be Troy, where they think Troy was. And then he goes on to a series of battles. This kind of follows him. He goes through, he defeats the Persian army. And then the final time at Gaugamela, once he defeats Darius, the Persian emperor here, he control of the whole thing. So he just suddenly inherits all this land. And then Alexander, he owned the land up until here, so he conquered it. And at the time when he conquered Egypt, they were not owned by the Persians as well. So he went along to conquer a bunch of kingdoms and empires, but he died when he was only 32 years old. He hadn't secured his succession, so he had no son. So when he died, his kingdom was split up between his generals. Each one gets its own, each general gets his own kingdom, and we'll see how that all breaks out later on. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So this is for the notes. Alexander's vast empire allowed for the blending of Greek and Asian cultures. So when you take Greek culture and mix it with Asian cultures, you get what's called a Hellenistic culture, or Hellenism. So that would be Greek, Indian, Egyptian, and Persian all mixed together, created this Hellenistic culture that then spread its influence throughout most of the Old World. So it's kind of like a cultural blender. You toss in a little bit of India, a little bit of Egyptian, some Persian, some Greek, and you blend it all up. And then you get yourself a nice little Hellenistic smoothie, basically. Alexander the Great actively sought to meld Greek culture with the areas he conquered. He didn't want to be like the Greek ruling class over a lower class of conquered individuals. He wanted everyone to be the same, to be one class. To create a new world is what he wanted to do. So that bit we already said. Greek culture blended with Egyptian and Asian cultures of Persia and India, mixed together to be Hellenistic culture. There's no Chinese mixed in there, anything like that. It's just Egyptian, Persian, Indian, Greek. Flip over. So Alexander the Great, no doubt, has been a popular figure in history. A popular figure for the arts, for the movies, for video games, all kinds of things. So we've got Alexander, is Colin Farrell as Alexander, Richard Burton as Alexander the Great, so on and so forth. So he's very popular. So the Hellenistic world, we have Alexandria, which was the largest city in Egypt for a long time. And for a long time, it was probably the largest city on the Mediterranean, if not close to. And it was the center of Hellenistic civilization. It was kind of being located in Egypt on the shore close to Greece. It had, a large population of everyone. There are Persians, there are Greeks, there are Egyptians all living together in this one city and melding together. So some achievements of the Hellenistic culture were Euclid, who created geometry. He was, one of those people who was a mix of Persian and Egyptian and Greece. Archimedes, who invented pi. So two really big things for mathematics came out of that. It's kind of hard to have geometry without pi, so pi is really big. The Hellenistic world was declining by 150 BCE, and a new power city was rising, Rome. So it takes 323 is when Alexander conquers his empire. So about 100, and we'll say 130 years later, maybe to like 170 years. So 130 to 170 years later, his empire starts to collapse. The power is waning in the Hellenistic world, and it's starting to grow in a new place called Rome. Rome is in Italy, so it's Italian, it's not Greek, but it was very influenced by the Greeks and the Hellenistic culture, so they kind of adopt Greek culture in a lot of ways. So Rome was incredibly influenced by the Greeks and Hellenistic culture. We will study Rome and the Roman Empire next. Okay, so here's the questions y'all are going to have to answer. In your own words, what was the overall purpose of this lesson? Well, you don't even have to use your own words. I tell you what the purpose of this lesson was. It's to study Greece because it's a foundation of the Western civilization, and a lot of our cultural ideas come from Greece, so it's important to know where they come from. Don't just come off the. And why do we study classical Greece and Rome? You know, that could be something like to get a better understanding of the Greek world, you know, how Greek life impacted our life, all that kind of stuff. So then you're gonna have to answer. This is going to be another one where you're going to need to use a short sentence. How did geography impact the development of Greek culture? What was a polis? What form of governments did most polis develop? So you're going to have to include two types of governments, include what Sparta was. So Sparta and one other one. I don't know if I agree with the most part. I might get rid of that. What classical Greek polis developed a democracy? Okay, here we go. So most of them were not democracies, right? Only one of them was a democracy. So explain what a democracy is in your own words, not some copy and pasted thing from Google. And what contributions did the ancient gifts, which are all on one slide together. Oops, I think I exited this. Okay, there we go. What was Hellenistic culture and how did it develop? So that will be that. Here's another thing. I know nothing except the fact that Socrates, all he knows is how dumb he is. Knows what he doesn't know. Disney's Hercules, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I'll post all that stuff for y'all. Thanks. Have a great day.